Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's J-Man. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm J-Man.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
Have you heard about all this horse shit that's been going on with John Schnatter, the former CEO and figurehead / face of Papa John's Pizza?
A little bit about it. Racism, allegations of racism or some shit like that.
So he's on a conference call for a quarterly sales meeting or some shit like that. And part of the call involves talking about PR disasters and how to prevent one.
You can't prevent them.
Right. So he's trying to illustrate a point and cites many years ago that KFC's Colonel Sanders used the word nigger to describe people of color. And then he did this, like I said, to try to explain how to avoid a public relations crisis, and in the process created a public relations nightmare.
That's how it happened? That's what it was?
Yes, because somebody recorded the conference call and then leaked it to the press, and then it got out. I think via Forbes.
This is the most I've heard of it, other than he was, Papa John's was the official pizza of the NFL, and they said he's racist, and then no longer the official pizza of the NFL. That's all I've honestly heard about it.
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay.
But let's just focus on the fact at hand. Okay, here's my stance on this. He should know better because it's 2018 and everybody's butthurt and a snowflake.
Yes.
Secondly, he did nothing wrong.
What? Did anybody listen to him explain? I wasn't saying that. I was pointing out an example. See, that's just what it is. You have to know the context of something.
Correct. And the Rageaholics are like, oh my God, you said the N-word and how fucking dare you and you're a racist and what? Hang on. Here's what drives me nuts. And this happened to me via my employer once, where I had a conversation with a coworker, and then it was tried to be held against me because I cited an instance of somebody else I knew using the N-word. And then the powers that be said that I was speaking defamatorily of a race of people. And I said, hang on. No, you fucking dolts. Because speaking referentially about other instances of racism is not inherently racist. I'm not promoting the use of the word nigger. I told a story because somebody asked me to, because I pointed out our different upbringings, that person being a female minority and me being a white male. And they're like, we'll cite examples. I'm like, well, for instance, growing up around white people and primarily white people, there's kind of a laissez-faire attitude about usage of racial slurs. Right?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So what it made me think was, okay, well, let me cite this example. And it was a story of a time, and this is many, many years ago, where my parents were grocery shopping. And I've told this story before, where my dad asked my mom to pass some things down the check stand.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, I thought the story was that she turned and looked at him and said, I'm not your nigger. Which is hilarious because behind her was a black man. And she didn't know that. And my dad just looks at the black guy and shrugs his shoulder and goes, and then he leaves. He walked out of the store and left her. And that's the story that got me in trouble.
I don't think I've ever heard that story before.
Really?
Honestly.
Well, years later, it was told to me that in reality, she said, well, who was your nigger last year? Which truly doesn't have the same effect as I'm not your nigger. But still just as funny that there was a black guy behind her and she was oblivious to this. Now, I would think that any honest, objective, respectable person of color would hear somebody talk about past instances of usage of racial slurs and understand that they're being used in a proper context to explain the past. You're not saying, well, let me tell you how I feel about all them niggers, which is not something that I would promote anybody to talk like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I'm citing it referentially, so don't get your torches and pitchforks out just yet.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's an intelligent person of color would say, yeah, people talk like that, and it's fucking abhorrent. And if you go, I agree, and I can't believe anyone ever spoke like that.
Can I go on a little side note here?
Sure, why not?
Okay, I know it's completely wrong to use the N-word in any instances. Anytime a white person says it, it's extreme racism, you're a racist at the other. So, is it racism or is it not racism when they say it to each other? Because it seems like some of them say it as a term of endearment.
It is, in fact, racist, but they'll say it's not because they will claim that it is, in fact, quote, a term of endearment. And people have been fighting that argument for like 40 or 50 years.
You don't say.
I don't know why.
Then I have to say, they need to make up their mind quick. Either it's a term of endearment and anyone can say it without any repercussions, or it's not a term of endearment, it is a horribly racist word, and nobody should fucking say it, including other black people.
Well, people that are Asian don't call each other chink.
No, they don't.
And people that are gay don't call each other faggot.
They do, but they do it in a fun way.
But they're not like, hey, what's up, my faggot? The same way you might hear in the hood.
They won't be like, hey, what, you fuck you faggot. They won't do that to each other.
I've never heard a gay person call another gay person faggot in that sense.
I thought I heard it once down by the gay 90s when I was working one night.
That's different. That's an oversaturation of gays. That's like the extreme end of the spectrum. But if you just happen to bump into two gay gentlemen that are purchasing bicycles, and one of them's like, don't be such a faggot. That seat is just going to wreak havoc on your asshole. The way I would.
That's kind of how it was.
You faggot. Anyways, back to Papa John here. Papa John Schnatter, who's fucking stupid. Let me break down the sequence of events.
Okay.
I have it in 6 steps.
Alrighty.
Number 1, he cites Colonel Sanders' use of the N-word. Number 2, word of this leaks to the press, and the sky starts falling. Not literally, but almost. Number 3, the next day he apologizes and resigns as the company chairman. Number 4, sponsors drop them, but stock prices rise. I don't get it either.
Yeah, that's kind of mind-boggling.
Right, so maybe they rose because people are like, he resigned. That's good that the company's taking a hardline stance against his use of racial
that's
terminology.
Probably what it is, yeah.
Because people are stupid. Number 5, Schnatter loses his office space at the Papa John's headquarters. Number 6, and this is just recently, like today or the last 2 days. Now he says he regrets resigning and the board of directors didn't investigate the matter properly, and he also claims that somebody that recorded it tried to extort him for $6 million to not release the tape, which is totally believable.
In this day and age, yes.
So anyway, you referenced the NFL thing. And this is why Papa John has been accused of racism, which is fucking stupid, based upon what I'm about to say, at least. Last fall, in a quarterly earnings meeting, they saw a drop in sales, which he blamed on the NFL anthem protests, as Papa John's was the official spokespizza of the NFL.
That could make sense, because if you're advertising on it and people aren't watching it and going, ooh, Papa John's, I should have that.
Yeah, but he's saying it was the anthem protests themselves.
Well, yeah, because people weren't watching football because of the protests. That's why.
Yeah, but that shouldn't change their taste for a certain company's pizza. Like, I'm sick of Colin Kaepernick and all this kneeling bullshit.
There's a lot of people out there where they won't think of a particular restaurant unless they see an advertisement for it. Whereas I don't watch regular TV. I just kind of know where I like to go to begin with. But no, I think that could affect it. Maybe not to the extent that it was affected. But there is I do think there's some kind of effect from all that.
There might be a slight correlation, but I don't base my liking of anything upon whether it's in front of my face or not. Advertising has no effect on me.
It doesn't for me either.
So 2 months after that sales meeting where he blamed on the NFL and people are like, fuck you, you're stupid, he steps down as CEO and became company chairman. So that was last fall with the meeting. Then 2 months later, he steps down as CEO. 2 months after that, around Super Bowl time, the NFL drops Papa John's as their official pizza sponsor.
Yeah, that I knew.
Which, it's a tad ridiculous. But when I talked about Papa John's losing sponsorships and affiliations after this, locally on KFan, I was stuck in the car the other day, and I heard about this, and he wanted people to call in, and I tried to call in, and it rang for like 5 minutes and then just hung up on me, which pissed me off because I wanted to talk. This rageaholic mindset of people in this instance specifically, where Target Field was going to stop their corporate sponsorship agreement with Papa John's over this?
A lot of the people who are associated with people who are, such as Papa John's, they think people will believe they're racist because they still support or promote stuff from Papa John's. So they distance themselves as much as they possibly can so that they won't be called a racist.
And that's how we've gotten to this uber-sensitive climate of immediately damning everything and, oh my God, if I don't hit the eject button right away, it means that we condone the behavior. It's a false equivalency. And it's exactly what happened with Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
When she made that tweet that she didn't even mean it racistly. She was just combining the mindset of the Muslim Brotherhood with the take control, fuck everybody that's not one of us mentality of the apes in Planet of the Apes. The lady just happened to be light-skinned black that she was talking about.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a false equivalency, and you hit the nail very squarely on the head. That if you still patronize businesses that are affiliated with figureheads that might do or say something negative or taboo in our current social climate, they'll think that that makes you inherently racist or sexist or homophobic just like them. And that's idiotic because it's one person.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you can't possibly like Papa John's because the pizza's good or it's a fair price. You like Papa John's because their CEO was a racist. That's why you like Papa John's. And my response is, go fuck yourself, eat a bullet.
Well, it got worse because, Target Field was just the local angle. In Louisville, they had Papa John's Cardinal Stadium for the college. Mm-hmm. And now they're thinking of just dropping it and going with Cardinal Stadium.
If I was a Papa John's franchise, I'd be like, well, you're going to give us some money back.
Okay, what does that say right there next to that asterisk, if you can read my writing? On the top.
Punishing franchises more than the... I can't read the last word.
Punishing franchisees more than the company. That's what this does. This sudden outrage against Papa John's. It's a company where every location is a franchise. You have to pay money. I looked it up. $250,000 to get started. You have to have $250,000 of net worth, $75,000 in liquid assets, and a total come to the table amount of $275,000 of investment money.
Yep.
Just to get a location, and they still charge you a one-time $25,000 franchising startup fee every store you open.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what a franchise is, it's basically what was just said here. You buy that name and put it on your store. You're
purchasing the rights to affiliate with the parent company.
It's an individual business. It's not part of the whole corporation. Not every Papa John's is owned by the one guy. Not every McDonald's is owned by the one guy. It's all franchises. Otherwise, these companies could probably never survive if they had to put all that money in there to get all this shit going.
Right, because when Peyton Manning played for the Denver Broncos, and he entered into a sponsorship partnership with Papa John's, he owned 13 to 18 different locations in the greater Denver area. Mm-hmm. He opened up pizza shops because, they were the NFL sponsor. He was, a future Hall of Famer. He was like the great white hope for quarterbacks. Which probably doesn't help the case of John Schnatter in that...
yeah, probably.
That simile. But anyways, I have two questions about this whole outrage thing. If you're so mad at Papa John Schnatter for using the word nigger, I'm not even going to say N-word, it's idiotic, for using the word nigger referentially, speaking about Colonel Sanders, why isn't KFC ditching their mascot then? If Colonel Sanders has this legacy of racism, why have they not gone away from their longtime figurehead?
An excellent question. Maybe because most people don't realize what that comes from?
So just because Colonel Sanders might have been a little bit racist, does that mean that every location promotes shitting all over people of color?
No, it doesn't.
Or the persecution of minorities?
Because they're a bunch of butthurt people. They have all the microphones. They have all the media. So they'll do whatever they want and destroy whoever they would like.
Well, it's in this day and age, you would think that they immediately would have tried to distance themselves from the Colonel Sanders character. But what have they done the last few years?
I have no idea. They
have doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on commercials that feature somebody playing Colonel Sanders. And they've had 6 or 7 people. They've had Daryl Hammond from SNL. They have had even Reba McEntire do it. They had a female Colonel Sanders. They had Jim Gaffigan play him. They had Norm Macdonald play him. That was the in-joke, is that it kept changing who it was. Just randomly. But they have not left the character to the wayside, even though you could easily find documentation. John Schnatter was able to, or at least heard to the grapevine, that Colonel Sanders dropped the N-word all the time.
Everyone did way back then.
Right.
It was pre-1960, wasn't it?
Yes, and it was a company that was started by a guy that was allegedly racist, so why the fuck do you still have him as your mascot? Question number 2. If the word nigger is so offensive, and the fact that it exists in history, which, by the way, you can't erase history, just to pretend it didn't happen, or try to wipe it out, does not equate to the fact that it never happened. We could say
from it, not hide
we
it.
should take slavery out of history books because it promotes slavery by letting kids know what it is, but that's idiotic, and it doesn't in any way negate the fact that there's a legacy of persecution and subjugation of blacks in America. But my second question, how have the books Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn not been permanently banned forever?
They're trying that. A lot of schools have banned it.
No, I mean in general. You know, if what Papa John did is so condemnable, then why aren't they, taking Mark Twain's books and saying, nobody should ever read this again? And let's say that Barnes & Noble has it on the fucking shelves. So does that mean that Barnes & Noble promotes racism?
In the minds of some small-minded people, yeah, it does.
Well, it shouldn't, because it's, once again, a false equivalency.
It is.
You're jumping to a conclusion that is not there to be seen or had.
It doesn't exist except in their mind.
So while I find it very lazy and careless that he used the word nigger like he did in a conference call, people are going to say the word nigger to reference past uses of the word nigger. And you shouldn't have to say N-word. I get it. It's an ugly word. I don't promote it. I don't like to use it. But I will use it in context when explaining ideas or history or things of that matter because it's topical. And my citing history in no way by using that word hurts anyone. And if you claim it does, you're fucking retarded. And I don't mean that you were born developmentally disabled. I mean that you're really fucking stupid and there's something wrong with your brain.
Yeah.
Those might sound very much alike, but they're not.
One's a choice, one isn't.
Exactly. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm J-Man.
And I'm number 1 fan, Tim.
And that's the end.
Everybody has different words that offend them, different things that they hear that they get offended by. To me, the thing that offends me the most is every time that I hear the N-word. Not nigger, by the way. I mean the N-word. Literally, whenever a white lady on CNN with nice hair says the N-word, it's bullshit, because when you say the N-word, you put the word nigger in the listener's head. That's what saying a word is. You say the N-word and I go, oh, she means nigger. You're making me say it in my head.